For many months, countless videos documenting the smuggling of illegal migrants from Germany to Poland have reached the public. The Polish government tried to ignore the problem. Faced with the prospect of the state failing its fundamental duties, citizens took matters into their own hands and, as the border defense movement, went to the border to monitor the situation.
Zobaczcie, tutaj po prostu chłopcy chronią.
The activism of the border defense movement is unwelcome to both Germany and Poland's government, led by Prime Minister Donald Tusk. These citizen border patrols are in fact so unwelcome to Tusk that curbing the border defense movement is a higher priority for him than actually protecting the western border.
Będę także oczekiwał od Straży Granicznej.
I will also expect the border guards and the police to provide precise information on how this problem can be eliminated. It is the state that is responsible for border security, not gangs of far-right activists. However, the border defense movement remains undeterred. Activists have announced that they will remain at their posts. This is no joke. I think that as for Tusk, the media that supports him and his political allies are trying to play masters of life and death. They make both direct and indirect threats, and they fill their supporters with an enormous hatred for their political opponents. Activists at Poland's eastern border are a thorn in the side of the current government because they expose just how weak the state truly is. Although the authorities are trying to convince the public that the situation is under control and nothing serious is happening, leaked documents obtained by the press tell a completely different story. Their sheer number testifies to the enormous scale of the continuing human trafficking, and their content illustrates the systematic practice of dumping migrants into Poland. As a result of the inspection, it was found that on the 31st of March 2025 at 9 a.m. on the Gubin-Guben border bridge, the above-mentioned foreigner was handed over to Polish border guard officers in Zielone Góry in Bamibost. He does not have a passport, a valid visa, or any other valid document entitling him to enter and stay in the territory of the Republic of Poland. The German side informed that the foreigner illegally crossed the Polish-German border on the area of border sign 388 on the 30th of March 2025. This means that Germany is sending migrants who have no documents and about whom they know absolutely nothing to Poland by car, claiming that these newcomers entered German territory from Poland. Regardless of whether this is true or not, the migrants end up on the Polish side of the border. There are two types of centres, guarded and open, and there are also migrants who need help from various charities and aid organisations, and that is what is happening. The transfer of illegal migrants to Poland arouses great emotion among the nation. Attacking the border defence movement is like putting out a fire with gasoline. This approach can only escalate the conflict, while doing nothing actually to address the core issue at hand. The situation on Poland's western border does not look very good. For several months now, illegal migrants have been transported from Germany to Poland. The Polish government has agreed to keep Polish services passive, to keep them away from the border, to accept all those people who Germany wants to get rid of from its territory into Poland, at our expense and with great risk. Residents of border towns do not hide their fears. Of course, we have houses here in fairly secluded areas, and if there are larger groups, we are afraid for our families, our wives, daughters and grandchildren. However, the behaviour of the German police seems to indicate that they are not entirely comfortable with this situation. Border defenders talk about very unpleasant situations where Germans try to provoke them and are aggressive. They say that when they are here at night, they turn on their high beams and halogen lights, and sometimes they cross over to the Polish side. Poles, seeing what is happening further west, do not want illegal immigrants to enter our country. In Germany, we have 80 cases a day, an average of 80 cases of knife attacks. People are afraid to walk there, and Poles know this, and I don't want that, which is why they went to the border. The pressure makes sense. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, who had not seen the problem until now, announced today that on the 7th of July, border controls with Germany will finally be reinstated. We have made a decision, and I wanted to inform the public and the ministers that we are reinstating temporary controls at the Polish-German and Polish-Lithuanian borders. Opposition politicians have no doubts about the Prime Minister's words. I don't believe Donald Tusk anyway. He is talking about restoring border controls. That's why I say I don't trust him, because it will probably be a sham control. Donald Tusk now knows that he is in a situation where he has no choice but to agree with those with whom he has disagreed on border defence. She wanted to rule with an iron fist to weaken member states. Now she may be in trouble herself. Ursula von der Leyen may have to defend her position as more and more MEPs are fed up with the authoritarian model of the European Union, which was supposed to be a community of sovereign states.
Sign.
Miss von der Leyen in Germany absolutely failed as a defence minister. She suffered a complete defeat. As the local media say, she simply failed and was sent to the European Union, and those were her great successes. One of them was blocking funds owed to Poland on the United Right government and openly supporting Donald Tusk as the most convenient prime minister for Berlin and Brussels. She is a woman who, in an unlawful manner, despite an agreement with the Polish government, blocked funds from the National Reconstruction Plan. Later, these funds were found, and it was such an unbelievable and brazen example of lawlessness on the part of the European Union and von der Leyen. Hence, a group of conservatives from various countries, including Poland, said, "Enough. Enough of meddling in the internal affairs of member states, weakening the economy and pushing illegal immigrants against the will of citizens." We need to put the government in the hands of conservatives. We need to practice real politics, not ideology, and these ideological infiltrations into the European Union are becoming more and more visible. So we need to dismiss Ms von der Leyen and appoint someone who will take care of the economy in the European Union. The motion of no confidence in the head of the European Commission was signed by, among others, MEPs from Law and Justice and the Confederation, although, according to information from Republica, some of the signatories are considering withdrawing their signatures. Signatures are currently being collected for the dismissal of Ms. Ursula von der Leyen as head of the European Commission. I have signed the motion and do not intend to withdraw my signature. I believe that the European Union is currently losing out economically to the United States and China, with debt piling up. The economic crisis, the migration crisis, the identity crisis, the decline in security, the dismantling of national armies, a whole series of absurd regulations, and most recently, the negotiation of unfavourable agreements for European farmers with South American countries and, most recently, Ukraine. All this to save the crisis-ridden German economy with EU money. That's a lot, hence Ursula von der Leyen's growing problems. Ms von der Leyen, in her previous term, implemented projects that were extremely controversial, such as climate policy or migration policy, or were unilaterally beneficial primarily to Germany. Perhaps her fate will be decided by the middle of the month, and the outcome is not a foregone conclusion. She is currently under fire from many political sides, and everything indicates that in order to save her seat and her position as President of the European Commission, she will seek the votes of the left and the Greens. This is a trial of strength because conservatives, who are gaining ground in many countries, do not want to be silenced, as was recently the case in Romania and France.
For several days now, tensions have been running high between Azerbaijan and Russia. First, Baku accused Moscow of torturing and murdering Azeri citizens. Then, they announced a diplomatic boycott. Now, Russian journalists suspected of collaborating with the FSB are being arrested. The Kremlin warns its neighbor against escalation, but Baku seems unwilling to back down. The Azeris are not going to let it go, which may have an impact on the situation in the region. Armenia and Turkey are closely monitoring the conflict. It all started with a brutal operation by Russian authorities in Yekaterinburg last Monday. The FSB detained 50 members of the Azerbaijani diaspora. Officially, it was about an investigation into a murder that happened years ago. Unofficially, it was part of a dispute with local politicians. During the interrogations, according to Moscow, 2 unfortunate accidents occurred, resulting in the deaths of 2 people. When the bodies were transported to Baku, the circumstances of these accidents became clear. After opening the skull, hemorrhages were detected in the hard and soft tissues of the brain. The blunt chest injury was accompanied by numerous displaced rib fractures on both sides along several anatomical lines. There are approximately 7 to 8 displaced rib fractures on each side. This prompted an immediate response from the Azerbaijani authorities. The Russian ambassador was summoned to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and all cultural events co-organized with Russia were cancelled. However, The Azeris really shook up diplomatic relations on Tuesday by detaining dozens of Russian citizens living in Baku, including Russian journalists, accusing them all of collaborating with the FSB. Such measures against media representatives are completely contrary to generally accepted principles and norms, and certainly do not correspond to the spirit and nature of Russian-Azeri relations. Tensions between Azerbaijan and Russia escalated after Russia shot down an Azerbaijani passenger plane in December 2024. Azerbaijani President Aliyev rejected an invitation to Moscow, accusing the Kremlin of a lack of transparency in the investigation. Several countries in the region may take advantage of the tension between Baku and Moscow. Ukraine is already doing so, as it welcomes any opportunity to weaken Russia. I spoke with Azerbaijani President Ilham Aliyev and thanked him for his support for Ukraine, our people, and their territorial integrity. I also expressed Ukraine's clear support in a situation where Russia is treating Azerbaijani citizens with brutality and threatening the Republic of Azerbaijan. The crisis between Azerbaijan and Russia is exacerbating regional instability, drawing Armenia, with which Baku is fighting for control of the Nagorno-Karabakh region, into the orbit of tensions. Until now, Azerbaijan has had Moscow's support in the conflict. It is possible that Armenia will now want to take advantage of the situation and reopen the Karabakh front.